couldn't be any happier right now, really. It's just fantastic to know that I'm actually Mr. I am officially Mr. I'm officially Finlay. It's fantastic.
Well, I think it's fair to say that quite a bit has changed since then.
Hi guys, it's Finn.
Welcome back, lovely people. Thank you so much for tuning in for another video. So this month marks 8 years since I changed my name officially by deed poll to Finlay. And it isn't an anniversary I've ever marked on here before. No idea why. It strikes me as strange now that I haven't actually ever done an anniversary video here before about that, because changing my name, officially changing my name, was probably the biggest thing for me back in those early days. So in today's video, I'm going to do a little bit of a reflection back on those early days, because lots of people ask me about, how do I start? I know I'm trans, but how do I make that start? So today I want to kind of talk about that, reflecting on how it was for me when I made that first huge step of officially transitioning by changing my name to Finn. But before we get stuck in, if you are tuning in for the very first time or you're quite new to my channel, then a very, very big welcome. By the amount of times I've just said it, you know by now my name is Finn. Hello! And I share my life in recovery as a gay transgender man, so I make content on all aspects of gender transition, LGBT life, mental health, phalloplasty, and just general living stuff. Technical term. So if all that sounds good and you're enjoying my content, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, because it really does help. And then you also, if you tick the notification bell, you don't miss any of the regular Finnstallments. So I changed my name by deed poll on the 9th of March 2012. So that is currently 8 years ago. And the process here in the UK is fairly simple, really. You just get a form where you sign to abandon your old name and start using a new one, and then you just take that document around to places to have them change your name. And you can do this with services online who will change it for you. You can do it with a solicitor, but actually, and surprisingly, you can do it for free off a form you can find online, put it on some nice paper. It's official enough, would you believe? So it's actually fairly simple in the UK, but actually it's a hugely, hugely significant deal. And I really cannot believe I've never actually reflected on this anniversary before. But that's what we're doing now, so it's okay. Do you know, it's funny reflecting on this really, because I changed my name in the March and I only really started, I only came out officially in the January. And looking now, it's like, well, that wasn't much time, was it? But I mean, there was a period of a good 6 months before that I was working through my identity, and I was pretty sure I was trans, as much as you can be until you start walking this journey. And but yeah, it does, like, looking at it like this makes it look like I did it quite quick. But when I came out, we were still in the process of changing the way you got a referral. Back when I came out, being transgender was still classed as a mental health disorder. Thank goodness that's changed. And so there was so much more emphasis on proving yourself back then. I had to go to a psychiatrist first and have them assess me before then I would even refer me to a gender identity clinic. It's so much different now. So there was this big kind of pressure on real life experience to really prove you were the gender you said you were. So in some ways I felt quite pushed to change my name quite quickly, because then if I had that proof of my deed poll, it was a real clear sign that I was serious about changing my gender, living as Finn, living as male. And that's why it was done so quickly, really, because without that, of course, I couldn't live as Finn, because I couldn't change my bank details, my student records and all of those things. So it looks rushed, and in some ways it was. But how I reasoned that at the time was that if this was the wrong decision, then I would just change my name back again. By this point, I was as certain as I could be that this was right. And actually, in changing my name, making it official, trying that on, that was a real signal to me of, this is something I'm really going to do. I'm going to really try this. And the more places I changed my name, the more official Finn became.
Mister. Oh my God. So exciting.
The more certain I was. And, those amazing first few days where, the whole time, when you change your name, it's a bit of a nightmare for a couple of weeks. You've got to take this document everywhere and tell people every single time you're changing your name and outing yourself. Oh my goodness, it was really stressful. But with every single step, there was more and more certainty of this being right. And I was asked a question a couple of weeks ago by somebody who said, look, I know I'm trans, but how do you go from knowing you're trans to starting this journey? And the saying is true, every journey starts with that first step. I really, really relate to that feeling. I mean, back when I knew I was trans, or as certain as I could be, it was like this massive, confusing, mountainous range in front of me in terms of the things I needed to do, the things I needed to face. It was terrifying, and it's so overwhelming. You just think, where do I even start? But you do just start at the beginning. And I remember my clinic doctor saying to me that transition is a process of risk. And actually, any decision in life we make is a risk, because whenever we make a decision, we cannot ever know if it's definitely right. We can only know enough. And then it's actually by starting that journey that then we know if it's right. Which is why with transition, we start with things that are reversible. Things like changing your pronouns, having people call you by different pronouns and how that feels, change your name by deed poll, how that feels. So it's a process of risks, small risks, and it requires a leap of faith. It really does. But where I was I was walking around pretty sure I was trans, but nobody else knew until I actually said, I'm male, and I had someone say back to me, him and Finn. I couldn't know if it definitely felt right. So it was those process of small risks. So although it looks like scary that I changed my name that quite quick in, I had to. I had to find out if this was right. Because, it had to be the pronouns, the name change, the testosterone, and the risks get bigger every single time, don't they? In terms of if it is wrong, there's less reversible the further in the journey you go if you choose surgery and so on. So with anything, when you're starting this, it's about experimenting in whatever safe ways you can. My initial coming out was to myself, and that's always the best start, when you know yourself, when you're pretty certain that this is right. I was pretty certain I was male, that everything made sense. Then I had a few close friends that I told, and in their company I was he, so I was practicing in those safe spaces. But then I was living my general life as she, so I had to make that next step, and then that felt right. And then I made the next step again into my deed poll name change, and that felt right. So yeah, that's how it starts, with these little leaps of faith and these little risks and trying things on and never being afraid to say, I got it wrong. Oops. That's what I had to own, was that if I did change my name and then in a couple of months' time I was like, actually, this isn't right. I'm not transgender, or I don't want to live as male, or maybe I'm non-binary, or maybe I want to just be more masculine. All of these things around gender that are so hard to know unless we experiment. We have to also be brave enough to take the leap of faith, but also be brave enough to take it back should we change our minds. And that's okay. We should be free to explore these things, So it's weird that I've never talked about that, other than, I talked about what it was like coming out, but that whole name change thing was such a huge deal. To have this official bit of paper was like the starting line of everything. That this is it, we're embarking on a journey now to really explore. This is a terrifying but incredibly exciting journey that not many human beings get to go on, because it takes some real deep level of introspection and traversing one's inner mountains that usually never get explored on this deeper level. And we have to, as trans people. And there's no definitive test to tell us if we are definitely trans and doing the right thing. So it's all this big trust in yourself and really dropping into yourself and exploring how it feels at every given moment. And that was so magical. Looking back now, it was terrifying. Absolutely. All these things were happening. I was coming out to everyone every 5 minutes because nobody could tell outwardly that anything had changed at the time. So there was me going, oh, by the way, it's Finn now, and it's he. Terrifying. But at the same time, also incredibly, incredibly affirming. And actually that moment of changing my name and having that bit of paper was that first real mirroring and affirmation back to me that I was right, that I was transgender and I was male and I was doing this. I am doing lots of reflecting on my journey at the moment. Lots of you probably saw the video last week where I talked about how I define myself now that I'm at the end of my transition in terms of being medically done. And I guess that's what led to today really, is that, thinking about how I define now at the end of my journey and then looking back at this incredible start of my journey, at this tiny, squeaky, skinny Finn that was terrified, that knew this journey needed to be done, but also terrified at the same time. And, to see how far I've come from that iconic moment, really, of going, right, this is it, I'm changing my name, I'm doing this, leap of faith, to now, So, yes, every journey does start with a scary leap of faith. We cannot start a journey, I don't think, without a bit of fear, because it involves letting go of everything we know and jumping off into the big abyss of something we have no idea about, but we know we're called to do. It's never easy, but it is the most rewarding journey in the world. Waffle! I do hope that Finn waffle was still relevant and helpful, and thank you to the person who asked that question about how you make that start, because it's made me think a lot, and I probably will do a more structured video on that at some point. So if you have any comments or questions, please, as usual, drop them below. Always happy to hear your thoughts and to have ideas about future content. Thanks for watching, folks. Don't forget, if you want more from me, additional blogs and resources and links to all my services, head over to my website at finleygames.com, and I will see you here next week for your next video. Take care of yourselves, folks.